The Justice Department netted their first big win this week in their case against 11 militia affiliates of the Oath Keepers. Joshua James became the first defendant to plead guilty to the sedition charges, or sedition-related charges to be more specific, in connection with the storming of the Capitol on January the 6th. As part of his plea, James agreed to cooperate with federal investigators, which includes testifying in front of a grand jury. And while we don't know what he'll say, we already know at least one of the locations he was on January the 6th leading up to the insurrection, at the Willard Hotel with Trump's longest-serving political advisor, Roger Stone. Now, new video evidence from a documentary crew following Stone's movement around the past 2 years actually showed James in Stone's suite just a few hours before the attack, according to the Washington Post, which reviewed footage from the film. Now, in the same hotel, other rooms were being used as command centers by none other than Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman, the lawyer behind the shady and infamous and shoddy legal claim that the Vice President Mike Pence could block the electoral vote count. So how does this all fit into the investigation by the House January 6th committee? Well, for one, we know that the panel is alleging in a new court filing that Trump and key allies engaged in potential crimes during their effort to overturn the election. That filing is part of an attempt to convince a California judge to allow the committee access to emails from John Eastman, who is currently claiming attorney-client privilege, It's the clearest indication yet that the panel's 8-month investigation could be leading to criminal referrals for Donald Trump. And while all of this is great in working towards holding Trump and his allies accountable for the insurrection, I have to ask, why is this all falling on the House committee? Where's the Justice Department in all of this? The DOJ has never said whether it is exploring criminal prosecution of Trump, although Attorney General Merrick Garland vowed to pursue wrongdoing at, quote, any level. And so my question is, why not appoint a special prosecutor? We've certainly done it before. Need I remind you of John Durham, Robert Mueller, or Ken Starr, for crying out loud? And for cases far less severe than a deadly insurrection, are you going to tell me that Whitewater and its real estate venture issues is more important to investigate than a systematic effort to overturn our election? Give me a break. Joining me now is Danny Savalas, NBC News and MSNBC legal analyst. Danny, set me straight here. Where is the Department of Justice? Why have they not created a task force as quickly as they created a task force to investigate Russian oligarchs just after the war with Ukraine broke out? Where's the task force looking into who attempted to overthrow our election?
This is just speculation, but in all likelihood, Merrick Garland and the DOJ just don't want that kind of trouble. And I'll tell you what I mean. The DOJ likes to win cases. They win over 95% of their cases that result in convictions. And those that go to trial, 90+% of them result in convictions as well. So in a case like this, consider that you're talking about going after a former president for activity that was going on while he was president, and you're going to deal with major First Amendment issues in the form of political speech and other things. So if I'm Merrick Garland, I'm probably a little risk averse. I'm a very successful person. I got to where I am by being smart and political. I'm going to sit back and wait for Congress to unearth anything good and juicy. And if it's worthwhile, then I can swoop in, no risk, and prosecute whoever needs to be prosecuted. But if I were Merrick Garland, I'd be sitting back, too. I would not be at the aegis. I would not be at the vanguard of the prosecution. I would be playing it safe.
Okay, and then you have Roger Stone, who has refused to give testimony and evidence to the House, and yet he had this film crew following him on and around January the 6th. How do you see these new videos playing into this investigation at all?
Well, they're relevant, they're interesting, and certainly they're going to be looked at. But consider this. I mean, what they're seeing is part of a documentary that Roger Stone was having filmed. To the extent it hasn't already been edited and the best part provided, it's not really a true snapshot into what he may or may not have been doing. Consider that, for example, if he's in his hotel in one of these command rooms, he puts on a show of doing something that he wants the cameras to see. If it's something he didn't want the cameras to see, well, I can bet they probably didn't see what wasn't desired to be seen by Roger Stone. So while the footage is interesting, it may be helpful, it's not going to be the kind of thing that's going to have any smoking guns, unless Roger Stone really felt like putting his own smoking gun out there. Figurative, of course, not a real smoking gun. But Roger Stone really is fighting his battle in preventing the Congress, preventing the committee from getting access to his electronic data. That's going to have much more interesting stuff than just what Roger Stone wanted to put up on a documentary.
So let me ask you really quickly, and we have about a minute left. Let's look at those court filings by the January 6th committee. Based on what you saw in this most recent filing, how strong is this case against Trump going to be? And could we actually see him ever held accountable for what happened on January the 6th?
Well, let's take little steps first. First, you might see him deposed relatively soon in another investigation. You might see him have to turn over information by people who are communicating with him, which has already been done. You may in the future see the former president sit for a deposition and take the Fifth Amendment. But consider this, and it goes back to my earlier point about Merrick Garland. Federal prosecutors, they like to win. That's why a lot of folks like me and other folks who come on TV have been able to say, well, there might be a crime there, but magically Trump has not yet been charged. It's easy for me to say I see a crime. It's a lot harder to bring it to a grand jury, get an indictment, and go prove it beyond a reasonable doubt against someone who will argue First Amendment protections and immunity, not just any immunity, but maybe presidential immunity for anything that he may have done.
All right, Danny Savalas. Danny, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you so much for your analysis.